So, hi, my name is Eben. I'm the customer lead here at Smileback. And the customer team at Smileback, what we do basically is help you, our customers, our subscribers, get the most out of Smileback. And that means we provide the customer support. So, you've ever written in with a question or a issue or a bug report, you will have spoken to one of my team. We also provide this kind of education, I guess I would call it, webinars. We write a help center. Sometimes we do videos as well. Um, and we also provide kind of more in-depth consultation. So, you know, maybe after this webinar, you'll be ready to just go away and set this up yourself. Certainly hope so, but if you still have some more questions, that's fine as well. You can get in touch with us. I'll have on the last slide our email address. It's help@smileback.com. We can also drop some Calendly links in at the end of the webinar so people can book calls. But for now, we will get going. So thanks for joining us. So as you know, today we are going to be talking about collaborating on feedback with Slack and Microsoft Teams. And I know I asked this when you signed up for the webinar in the first place. I'm going to ask again just to see out of who came today. If we could get the poll up on the screen, which should be on your screen in a couple of seconds. We have a poll and it's going to ask you which system do you use for internal communication in your organization, and that is up now. It should be on your screen right now. So do you use Microsoft Teams? Do you use Slack? And actually, if you use something else, maybe Basecamp or one of the Atlassian products, perhaps, click other. But just if you click other, let us know in the chat what you're using. And we'll keep that open for a little bit longer just to give everyone a chance to vote. I see there's a few more people who just joined the webinar. So if you just joined, you should have a poll on your screen right now, and we're just asking you, does your company use Microsoft Teams, Slack, or another system for internal collaboration? And if so, if it's one of the others, let us know in the chat. Obviously, these things have been around for a while. We've been using Slack ourselves since the company started. But it's become so much more important, I think, in the last, year and a half. I'm imagining the kind of big move to home working in the days of when it was really just phone calls and email. I think it would look very different to a kind of always on, um, sort of staggered or asynchronous messaging system. Is this usage from an MSP perspective or as a standalone company? Um, that's a good question. I guess I'm asking, like, what are you using internally in your company with your colleagues? I know probably a lot of our MSPs are generally supporting your clients to use Microsoft Teams, but I do know that some people are using Slack themselves and might be supporting clients with both, uh, depending on the client. All right, Yuria, do you want to close that poll and we'll have a look at the results? Okay, so we got 86%, 12 out of 14 using Microsoft Teams and 2 out of 14 using Slack. So we do have both of the main messaging platforms represented here. Most people are using Teams. That's what we've seen as well, just from looking at the usage of these integrations we're going to talk about. Slack is definitely an important one, but probably among MSPs, Microsoft Teams does seem to be the clear leader. Okay, so why are we talking? Why are we Smileback talking about this? We're going to make that, I think, very clear in the next couple of points here on the agenda. This is going to be a fairly slide light webinar, but I'm just going to talk a little bit about the background first. Acting on feedback and why it's important and what it has to do with Teams and Slack. We're going to look a bit at, just talk a little bit first about the integrations that Smileback provides. And then we're going to have a little bit of a look at how they are set up. I'm going to try and kind of divide between both of them. Given that we have people watching who are using Teams and Slack, From the point of view of Smileback, it works much the same. It's just how do you start the process of installation that varies depending on which system you're using. But otherwise, they are fairly comparable, and that's why we made and released them at the same time. And if you have questions, we will do questions at the end, but don't be afraid to kind of enter them into the Q&A as you go along or into the chat as you go along, and I will try and get back to them later. Um, and I can also stop during it for questions. We'll just see how it goes, I think. So with that said, let's get started. Um, so what we're really talking about is acting on feedback. If you're using Smileback, if you're using any other kind of survey and feedback system, you are presumably already interested in getting feedback from your customers. And I imagine most people on this webinar are already using Smileback, but possibly you're not. Possibly you're thinking about it. You might be looking at Smileback and something else. You might even be using something else right now. But, you know, feedback is really important, right? You are working in a job role and probably in an overall industry if you're one of our MSP clients, where customer contact, customer relations are really just the heart of the business. It's not an add-on. What you are doing every single day is helping people run their businesses better, supporting them with their issues. So you've got to know what they think really. It's I think you know nowadays it's not really optional anymore. Um, and I'm not going to kind of go into all the details of how Smileback works. As I say, I believe most people on the webinar are already subscribers. But as you're going to use it to gather feedback, and that might be ticket by ticket, CSAT. You close a ticket, you send out the free faces, and people click on it. Or you might be using a Net Promoter Score, where you're sending more like a periodic survey, monthly, quarterly, half a year, to a large group of people all at the same time, and you're asking them to rate your company. So that's the kind of gathering feedback, that's point one. There's then, of course, understanding feedback and analyzing it using reporting and Smileback, but we won't go into that today. What we're talking about today is acting. So when you get feedback, when someone says, you did a great job, you didn't do a good job, I love working with this company, I'm kind of iffy, I used to like working with this company and now I'm not so happy, whatever it is, you're going to want to do something with that, right? Because if you're just collecting it and it's just living, it's going into Smileback and you're not looking at it, either in Smileback or in another system, you're not responding to it, then, it's why bother, right? So acting on feedback is, it's a broad thing. What exactly that means is going to vary company to company. However, what I imagine most people are doing is something like when you get bad feedback or when you get neutral, middling feedback, you are trying to follow up with those people. And what we do in Smileback is whenever we get feedback like that, we always go back, we always respond, we try and do it the same working day. If not, that's not possible, certainly the next working day, um, get back to the person and see, what went wrong, or if they already said in the comment what went wrong, get them to elaborate it or get more information, and make contact with them. Show you're listening, show you care. Um, and then beyond the initial response, we then have basically a point of trying to make it right, or at least trying to understand. Sometimes we can just go ahead and make it right. Sometimes it's maybe more complex or ambiguous, but there's going to be something we can do to, learn from it, right? Um, and that's just kind of our example, but I think it's going to be fairly similar for a lot of people. But there's other types of acting on feedback. So, when you get positive feedback, asking those people to, maybe refer your business, or asking those people to share a review, or, uh, give you a quote, or appear in an advert of something, that's acting on feedback as well. And then internally as well, acting on feedback can mean learning from it as a team, using it as a way to guide the training for your staff. So whatever it is you're doing, you need to start with your goal, and maybe your goal is we will be a more responsive organization, something very broad, or maybe you've kind of already got your sort of broad goals and you're drilling down to something more specific and measurable, like we will have a 99% net CSAT score every month. But whatever it is, if it's a kind of a big description of where your company wants to be, or it's more like a target, you start there and you decide, why are we going to do this? What are we trying to achieve? And then once you know what you want to achieve, then you can start designing a process to achieve that. So I've spoken a bit about what we do in Smileback, and we have had different versions of this. It's evolved over time, but we have tried to explicitly decide, like, what do we do when we get good feedback? What do we do when we get not good feedback? And then once you've done that, then you put it into practice. And what we're kind of getting into now with talking about Slack and Teams specifically is putting that into practice, or one part of it. And really what this integration helps you do is it helps you see the feedback that's coming in, and then it helps you as a team work on it, because that's the point of Slack and Microsoft Teams. It's to make collaboration more easily. And especially with the more recent updates that we've made to our Slack and Teams integration that I'm going to talk about, I think we are trying to get to a point of really helping you with that. So let's move on and kind of get into the details. So just to talk a very little bit, so I'm saying integrations, by that I just mean the integration for Slack, the integration of Teams. Kind of from our perspective, it's effectively the same thing. Much of the architecture is similar. We released them at the same time. And we started small. We first released it in March 2021, and it did really one thing. When you get a new review, be that CSAT or NPS, you can post that review automatically into your chosen team and channel in Microsoft Teams, or your chosen channel in Slack. And basically that was the simplest possible version of it. And we do, what we try and do is iterate when we release products, or when we release new parts of Smileback. We start with, what can we get working that's going to be useful? Let's get it out there. Let's see what the response is like, and then we'll look at growing it, improving it. And this was a great launch. People were, this was one of the quickest take-ups of a new feature we've ever seen. It was immediately popular. But it was very clear from very quickly that people wanted more. From really the first week, people were saying, well, yeah, I like this. This is good, but I don't necessarily want to put every single review into the same public channel or the same team, or I don't necessarily need to have them all. I'd really just like to get the ones with comments, for example. And we got a lot of that feedback, by email, by comments on our public roadmap, and we did a webinar a few months ago where we first introduced this, and that question came up then. So it was really obvious what we needed to do next for you. And that was to basically just make it a bit more sophisticated, make it a bit more powerful. And that's what we did last month. So I think it was kind of around the beginning of August, we released the first kind of big update to these integrations. And basically what that did was, it meant you could now set up multiple connections between Smileback, and your messaging software. So rather than just, if you think of it almost like a pipeline, rather than just one pipeline where all the reviews come in and they all come out in the same place, it's now letting you set up, individual smaller lines where, for example, the positive comments with positive reviews with comments, they're going to go to the good news channel, and the negative neutral reviews, they're going to go to the escalation channel. Or the marketing team is going to get those comments to have marketing permission. The user is given marketing permissions. They know who to follow up on and who to add to the case study bank. So basically, it's just about giving you more power and more ability to make your Smileback account and your Smileback integrations match the kind of processes that you have built or are in the process of building around your feedback. So just going back to the beginning of my presentation, it's helping you meet the goal you've set for yourselves better. So I mean, that's it in a nutshell, really. What I want to do now then is, let's just take a look at how this kind of works in practice. And we have a help center that covers really all things Smileback, but specifically we have an article for how to set up Microsoft Teams and how to set up Slack. So don't necessarily worry about remembering everything I do right now, everything I say right now. You know, treat this as a way to kind of get familiar with it, get the cogs turning, and then, you know, we've already written down these instructions step by step, so you don't necessarily do you have to write down. Do you have a Visio drawing representing Pipeflow? That is an excellent suggestion, Matthew. I wish now I did, and I put it on this slide right here. I don't, but I can certainly look at adding that actually to our help center. So the articles I just mentioned that we'll share in the chat very shortly, they won't have that right now, but I can add that maybe later this week. So I'm just going to leave my slides right now, and we're going to jump over here into Smileback. So here's our Smileback demo account. It's basically just like a real Smileback account that's connected to ConnectWise Manage. This integration, if anyone's watching who's using Zendesk or Freshdesk, it will work for you as well, or any of the other platforms that we support. Actually, we use Zendesk ourselves rather than ConnectWise Manage for our own support desk, and we use, you know, this integration. So if you don't see Smileback quite like this, specifically I want to draw attention to the tools menu up here. That's most likely your user account doesn't have the permissions. So as long as you have admin permissions, you will be able to access everything under this tools menu. If you don't, you can let us know, and we can find the right person in your company, or just ask your colleague. Basically, every company should have at least one person. The person who started the account will have all the permissions, and generally, what they can do then is add other users and give them the necessary permission. So if you don't have this right now, talk to your colleagues and they can upgrade you. Or if the person who always managed Smileback has left and isn't there, let us know. Write a ticket to help@smileback.com and say, help, I can't find my admin, I can't access any of my settings, and we can help you out with that. It does happen from time to time. So what you'll see when you're in Smileback, obviously you'll see your own results down here. I'm on a reviews page right now, the CSAT reviews page I selected in this left-hand menu, but this top kind of frame and side frame is always there. So whatever page you're on, you click on the tools menu, and then you can go to integrations. And then you'll see there's quite a lot on this page. We have lots of integrations now, but I'm just going to scroll down to the kind of bottom half, and you see down here we've got Slack and Microsoft Teams. So let's talk about Microsoft Teams first, because that's what most people are using. You'll notice we don't have a kind of connect button here. That's because for Microsoft Teams, you probably already know this actually, because I imagine you're familiar with it. if you add an app to Microsoft Teams, you do it inside Microsoft Teams. So you need to make sure you have the right permissions. Again, in Microsoft Teams, you need to have some kind of admin permission. I'm not 100% sure what they call it. I think they call it admin. But basically, you go to the App Store. You can then search for Smileback. Obviously, you can see it right here. Gives you a little, some little images to let you know what to expect. And then you go ahead and add it to a team. And you choose where you want to add it. So if you are adding this for this first time, then just choose where you want to start. If you are going to add more than once, that's fine. But obviously, the first time you do, you need to choose somewhere. So if we just choose the general one, you then click on Setup Connector. And then what may happen is you just then end up on that menu. It should pop open Smileback. If that doesn't happen, don't worry. What you can do is, if that didn't open, you can go onto this little menu with the icons here. You can open up your connectors, and then you can search again for Smileback. And it should show up in your connectors. If you're having any trouble with it, you may need to check your side loading permissions. That's mentioned in the Help Center article, which is in chat right now. If you don't know what that means, don't worry. Open up the link that's in the chat for use Smileback Microsoft Teams. We explain this about sideloading, and we actually have a link to the Microsoft documentation that will tell you what that's all about. And when you're ready, you just click Configure, and then you'll see this is the same page that had popped up for me automatically anyway in the first place. If this is your first time adding a Smileback Microsoft Teams connector, you will just need to sign in. So in this window here, you'll see the Smileback sign-in page. If you've already done it before and now you're coming back to add, another connection with that possibility that we now have, you'll instead just land straight on this permissions. And as you can now see, if you scroll down here, there's now lots of different options. So if you did this before, you will have just seen a few things like that are up here. And this is really the kind of heart of this most recent improvement we made to this integration, is giving you these filter options. So let's imagine, for example, we are not going to do anything with MPS today. So let's turn that off. We're just doing CSAP. If you just leave it as it is, it's going to give you everything. So every time you get a new review, after about 15-20 minutes, when all the automations run, it will run one and it will post that review into your chosen channel and into your chosen team. But if you want to get a bit smart with it, you can then use these filters. So as you can see down here, we have various rows, and then we have some toggles. So what I'm going to do here is let's just select, let's say this is going to be the kind of good news, like if you have a channel where people just put nice, good feedback from customers, keep everyone kind of motivated and feeling positive, we'll select positive. And maybe we want to be a bit more specific than that. Maybe we just want to get the comments, right? So you can then just toggle that on. And if you don't like that, you can toggle it off again. You can click on that, take away that positive thing and start again. You can then also, at the bottom down here, configure what information is going to be shown. So, for example, in a channel that's shared with the whole team, it's just about, hey, here's a nice comment. Maybe you don't need to put all of these different bits of information in. Maybe you don't want to share the customer's email address. Maybe you just want to show, you got a new review. It was for, this agent or agents, techs, engineers, however you call them in your company. So you can just turn that off. And these were actually always available as options. Or for another example, I was talking about kind of escalating, negative and neutral reviews. So let's select negative and neutral. So you see we've now got just 2 of the 3 selected. That would put every negative and every neutral review into a particular channel. When you're ready, you just click save. I suspect it's not going to fully complete for me just because this is a slightly odd test app. It's like not the real thing. But what you should see when you do it is a success message. What we occasionally find with Microsoft Teams is sometimes it takes a little while to update. Sometimes things don't seem to quite go through the first time, especially if you've only just connected it to SmileBack. Sometimes you need to wait a while and try again. Just kind of give it like 15 minutes for all the different Microsoft servers to all communicate with each other. Yeah, for me, it didn't work today, but that's fine because we can complete the whole thing in Slack. So just to go into Slack right now, as this is the one we actually use ourselves and have it all plumbed into, as you can see, here's a couple of reviews that I created earlier just before the webinar started. And as you can see, they're posted through. The formatting is slightly different in Microsoft Teams, but it's basically the same kind of information. And as I say, the way to find that is here. If we just go back to the dashboard, is from inside your SmileBack account, you go to Tools, you click on Integrations. And then if you want to add more, you can just repeat the steps. So you would just go back into Microsoft Teams, open the connectors, and configure it again. So basically each time you configure it, you can just add a new one. Or if you need to add it to a different team, you can go back to the App Store and again select SmileBack and now choose a different team. So maybe you have maybe you use different teams for different parts of your company, or you have certain teams where you like collaborate with customers. You can use it that way. If you want to remove it, again, you can do that inside the connectors configuration inside Teams. And just to make sure, you can also look at the authorizations here inside SmileBack. If you update Microsoft Teams and then refresh SmileBack, so you should then see those removed. So I'm going to talk about Slack now. As I say, it's really just the first part, the adding the integration that varies. The setup is basically the same thing. So with Slack, you start from inside of SmileBack itself, and you either click Connect if it's your first time, or you click Add New if you've already done this once. You'll see again, it prompts you to choose a channel. I'm going to do Integration Demo, and then click Allow. Of course, you'll need to make sure you have permissions in Slack to, add apps to channels, or at least add apps to the relevant channel. So just before you start, make sure you have the right permissions inside Slack. And again, it's just the same thing as we saw in Teams. It's actually a little bit easier to read though because it goes full screen. And as you can see, we can toggle on and off CSAT and MPS, so you can choose just one of them or you can choose both. Let's just look at MPS this time for a bit of variety. And once again, we have a couple of different filter options, not as many from MPS because MPS doesn't pull in all that ticket data. And then we have some toggles for the type of information to be shown. But it works in much the same way. You could choose to put the unhappy people or the unhappy and the kind of middle people into a certain channel. You click done, which I'll do right now actually. And then you could go back to integrations with that button there, and then you can just click add new, and then just start the process again. So if I was going to put my positive or my promoters in MPS terminology, my happy people into another channel, like into the feedback channel, for example, I would choose that and I would just repeat those steps again. I'm just going to go back to integration demo though, just so I don't mess up our real Slack channels. And then these different options you see here, if you're already using MPS, then you will see different campaigns that you created in that drop-down menu. So these are the ones for our test company, Southwest IT. And if it's for CSAT, if you're a ConnectWise customer, under segments, you will see boards. So you can see you've got a few example boards. Um, if you're on a different one of the other ticketing systems, it will be something like the issue type or the ticket type. We can help you work that out. And you can even make it, I mean, you can do as much or as little of this filtering as you want. You know, you could get very, very specific. And for example, you could even go to the level of choosing individual companies. Let's say you have different channels for different areas or different account managers and the accounts they manage. You know, you might want to put reviews from, you know, these 5 companies go into, you know, one channel and those 5 companies into another channel. And you could even get down to the level of contacts. For example, like VIP contacts, you know, you might want to choose certain people and just really make sure people are noticing them by having a dedicated channel. Um, as I say, it's really up to you. And it really all goes back to what I was saying right at the beginning about starting with your goal and deciding, you know, what do you need to do with the feedback you get? How are you going to react to different types of feedback? You know, what steps is your team going to take or is already taking? And then how could Slack or Teams help you, you know, collaborate more easily, um, work together when people are outside the office, make sure people see things. If, you know, if it's like our team, we spend most, well, personally, I spend most of my time in Slack. You know, we get our new tickets pop up in Slack. We get all our feedback using this integration that I'm just showing you now, pops up in Slack. So I try and use Slack as my main kind of feed of information throughout the day. Um, and this basically guarantees that I see feedback nice and quickly. And as I say, you know, can react very quickly if people are unhappy, or if it's just interesting, or if it's just ambiguous. You know, that's the great thing about Teams or Slack. You know, you can just start a thread and just say, hey, does anyone know about this? Or you can at a particular person say, hey, John, you were working on this ticket. Do you know why they might be unhappy? You know, it's going to vary depending on your company, but I'm just trying to give you some ideas and get the kind of sparks going. So, can you select multiple companies or must you select one at a time? Yeah, so you can select multiple companies. So as you can see here, I just clicking on different names and they are added. We can take them out again by deselecting individual ones with the X or just by hitting back. You can also type into the box. So if you're looking for a particular company, so let's get NetAid. You know, if I type NetAid will come up, and the same thing works with these other ones. So with the agents, you know, if I type Miller, I get R Miller. I can add multiple agents like so. So you might do it on a team, you know, like or sub teams within your team. For example, they might have their own channels, their own teams, even in Microsoft Teams. So yeah, you can add multiple ones, and you can use multiple filters at the same time as well. So let's choose negative and neutral up here, and then we will add, you know, a kind of a group of companies down there. So it really gives you a lot of flexibility. You can pick and choose. All right, see, I have a question from William. Will you guys add the ability to exclude companies from the filter versus just having to add all the companies you want? So what William is saying is basically, you know, if you want most of these companies, let's say, in there, and there's just one you don't, right now, William or anyone else who's wondering about that, you would have to select all of the current ones, all of the ones you do want, and just leave out the ones you don't. We could look at adding a kind of an exclusion filter, I guess you would call that, where it's, you know, there's like, it is these companies or it is not these companies, or maybe it's these companies and not those companies. We will definitely look into it. It's not something that's currently in the pipeline. It's actually, I think you're the first person to ask. But yeah, we will definitely look into it. If you wanted to drop me an email actually and just maybe yeah, drop me an email about it and I can get back to you kind of personally. So if you write into help@smilback.com, especially if you give me maybe paint a bit of a picture of what you were hoping to set up, that's always really helpful. So yeah, if we go ahead and just any questions, drop them into the chat or use the Q&A box. Either is fine. I've got them both up. I'm looking at both of them right now. Um, just let me know, or if you want me to kind of go back with any of those steps I talked about, that's fine as well. Okay, I haven't had any more questions yet, but I'll give people, I know some people might be right in the middle of typing. I'll just talk about getting in touch with us. So you see on the screen right now, we've got help@smileback.com. That's the main help desk. So me, my colleague Yuria, who is the person kind of working behind the scenes today, and our colleague Natan, we monitor that. We respond to everyone who writes in there. Um, we of course have our help center, and if you look in the chat, you might need to scroll up just a little bit. We've shared the article for how to set up Teams and how to set up Slack, so there are dedicated instructions for both of them. You can also book calls with us. So if Yuria, could you drop, please, the Calendly link, like the main 30 minutes customer consultation link in the chat? Calendly is a very neat tool. You might have used it, or you might use TimeZest, which does a similar thing, but specifically for ConnectWise, lets you schedule meetings. So basically, you can just look through the times available there, and book a meeting with us at a time that works for you. I really want to stress that customer consultation, customer support, it's all included at Smileback. We don't charge any kind of like hourly fee for setup or consultation, or we don't say you can have this many calls. Um, Only, just let us know. Send us an email to help@smileback.com, or book a call with us. We really, really want to talk to you, really want to help you with this. If anyone has any more questions, I mean, I have time to answer, I can answer them now, or maybe you want to go away and think about it and just get back to us on the email address, and we can answer it later if that works for you. No? Okay, well, thanks everyone for coming. Um, will the replay be available, Carol? Yeah, so we're recording this right now. We will get it up on our YouTube and on our Content Hub, and we'll also email. So we'll send it to all the registrations we got, basically. We'll send you the replay. We usually have it ready in a day or two. Should have it ready kind of end of this week, maybe on Monday. Yeah, and some people are saying, yeah, they might need to share it with another admin. So yeah, we'll send that. And if you didn't catch it, or if you watched a replay and you still have questions, of course, just let me know. Like I say, help@smileback.com. You can write your question there. You can just write and say, hey, I don't help me out. I want to book a call. Just let us know, and we'll do that. All right. Well, I will end it there. Thank you so much for joining. I know we had at least one person from California, so thank you. I know it must be early in the morning for you, or the people in Europe, you're probably waiting to finish your day and get home, or at least get away from your home office. So thank you so much. And keep an eye out. We basically do a webinar every month. Usually towards the end of the month, we've made it a very regular thing now. So just look out for more news from us. Look out for the recording. That should be coming to you in a few days. And yeah, thanks so much. Have a great rest of your week.